this tutorial will be about polarities. So let's begin. Since I really like this quote of Neil Gaiman and I open all the tutorials with his quote, I want to ask one of the participants this time to read these beautiful words. Is there anyone in this room who is helping me? Go ahead, Cemal. We are with you.
Okay, so fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us dragons exist, but because they tell us dragons can be beaten.
Yes, thank you so much. That's why we are telling stories, and it's a serious business in that sense. And in this storytelling session, we will focus on polarities. And for the next week, we will focus on how to use routine and repetition. And I want to also create a program for you, how to create a ritual also for storytelling sessions. So we have a big question in here. Why do opposites attract? Is there anyone in this room who has an idea? Why do we find opposites very attractive? Or why do opposites attract each other? Go ahead, Cemre.
It's the law of universe, like electrons and protons, different,
True.
like opposite energies. It's no law of nature.
Is it law of attraction maybe also? Yeah. They complement each other, comes from Cemal, and it's so true. This is the nature of the duality, like the black and white, love and hate. They basically complement each other because most of the time, what we really want to achieve is actually to become one. Two things wants to be one. And when it becomes one, it becomes the whole. You give a sense of whole. And in each story, the story is always starting with something create an unbalance in a normal circumstances. Therefore, it is not like alles in Ordnung. Something is just change. Something is not like the old times. Something is becoming something else. Therefore, there is a two different sides. There is a two different confrontation. There is a different polarities who actually attract each other. So in today's menu, we are going to focus on about dualities in the stories, what's happening in those stories. And then we are going to do some spontaneous storytelling sessions focusing on opposites directly. And then I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you how far you can be, how far you can go with the polarities, how extreme you can be, and how flexible you can go further. And hopefully, if we do have the time, we are also going to tell the story of the lion and the mouse from the Aesop fairy tales. I will share some interesting, useful sources, and at the end of the session, we can maybe have a time to answer and question and answers together. So, since there are a lot of Turkish participants, I want to open my session with bir varmış, bir yokmuş. Es war einmal, es war kein Mal. So, there are always dualities in the stories, and especially in fairy tales or folk tales, there is always some typical polarities. In that sense, in those kind of stories, like the fairy tales, we always can see some physical oppositions, like black and white. So obviously, young woman, old woman, beautiful, ugly, a poor or rich, a big or small. Those kind of physical appearance are easy to find out actually. But when we go more deeper, we actually realize other oppositions, such as emotional world. And those emotions are universal, but can be different for each person. I like to give the example of love and hate since it's the most common stories in universally, but it can be also joy and sorrow, or fear and courage. In that sense, it's interesting actually for all of us, because think about it. Maybe the opposite of the fear is not courage, but fearless maybe. Or maybe the opposite of love is not hate, it's nothing, no love at all. So those kind of small, tiny emotional oppositions is really unique for each participant. One of the beautiful emotional opposition that I find nowadays, thanks to Sarah, is being cool versus being patient, for example. It's so good. It really illuminates my world, for example. It's so true. So in that sense, it might be very easy to find out some emotions like love and hate or joy or sorrow, but there are so many different patterns in emotions in terms of opposites, how they attract each other. And the last one, which is very, very important for us while we are telling our stories to children, is the conceptual themes, actually. It can be very basically the contradiction between the good and the evil, like the peace and war, the fair and unfair. Those kind of conceptual themes to find out is not very easy, to be honest, because sometimes we also have difficulties actually to focus on some cruel, some negative details of those themes. But it's really important to focus on in each story is what kind of polarities is going on in terms of conceptual themes. Because by using all those fairy tales, all those archetypes, all those symbols, basically we will give what we want to give to our children, which are so difficult to talk in a normal days. And in that sense, all these fairy tales can be healer for you as well. So I guess I talked too much. Now I stop. Now you have 3 minutes to work individually. And I want to focus on some dualities in the stories. You can focus on the physical appearance, you can focus on emotional differences, and you can focus on the opposite direction of the conceptuals. Slowly, slowly, I ask you to come back to me. I hope you enjoy while discovering all these opposites. Please feel free to share with us if you find something very interesting, something you didn't realize it before in terms of spotting the opposites in your inner world. You can write into the chat or you can tell it. And I'm going to the next one. So right now we focus on some polarities. And when you look at your paper, maybe you realize something really touching to you. Right now we are going to work together as a partner. And you are going to tell a story from your real life. In that sense, before telling the practice to you, I want to say to you that we are going to use the breakout rules. And in that sense, while Sarah is trying to put you some of the rooms, if you have any sort of technical problems, please contact with Sarah from the chat, and then we can find a solution for this. So now, I want to ask you to think about some short story from your life, which includes some polarities. It doesn't have to be 100% different from each other, but there's some polarities to play on. And then you are going to tell it to your partner spontaneously. And once you finish, you will get a feedback from your partner. Storytellers, you will have 2 minutes to tell your story. Therefore, enjoy your time. Take it easy. And after you get your feedback from your partner, it will take approximately 1 minute as a feedback. You are going to switch the roles. I hope it's all clear for everyone. Sometimes it's not very easy to find out who is going to start first. So in this breakout rules, whoever small will start to tell the story first. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this session. And now let's go further. Yes. Right now, I actually want to think about your spontaneous storytelling sessions as a discoveries. Did your partner hear any polarities that you did not even aim for? Because while we are telling a story, whatever we are actually want to give to our audience and what the audience is really receiving from what we say is mostly not the same. But if we can really focus on the polarities with all the layers and textures and qualities, then it really makes sense actually to give what we really want to give. And as a listener, I really wonder how easy or challenging for you to identify those polarities. Sometimes it's really easy, especially if it is a physical appearance, but in terms of emotionally or the conceptually, since the person consciously is not aware actually what's going on in the story, it can be a big question mark. In that sense, if you have a particular discoveries while you are telling your stories, please feel share with us. Feel free to share with us. You can always write to the chat if it comes to your mind. And now you are going to play another game. And this time I am actually going to challenge you even more. You are going to tell exactly the same story, really, the same story. However, this time you have a different task. Listeners, you have the opportunity to direct the storyteller with your hand by doing this. Which means, give me more. I want more. Give me more. Give me more. Give me more. And the storyteller's task is also beautiful. This storyteller can exaggerate all the emotions, all the moments, all the themes, like physically, verbally. If you really want to do it really, really intense, you can really just go ahead and use all the part of your room as well. You are the only person and your partner will be with you. In that sense, be real drama queen. We don't have this right to be a real drama queen in our life all the time. Therefore, enjoy it. And do not switch the roles this time. And for this session, for those who is smaller, is going to be the listener, and the other one will be the storyteller. Enjoy being a director and real drama queen. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How is all these
Hello.
directors? How is all this drama queen? Is there anyone in this room who wants to share the discoveries? We have a bit time. You can just tell it from your microphone.
It's not very easy actually.
No.
True.
Uh,
True. In which level it was hard for you, Ogül?
Maybe because I didn't want to kind of interfere with the person's way of telling, and I was also a little bit lost in the story,
Yeah.
which is a good sign actually. But then I recognized that this could be exaggeration. It could be exaggerated more. Like these ideas came to me, but maybe I just was leaving her to do her way.
It's very true, and to be honest, Ogül, if I would also do the same practice, it would be definitely so difficult for me, because this practice is actually designed for you to challenge your polarities in terms of being extreme, but it's not enough actually. In here, the key point is actually to become a flexible, because suddenly, while you are extremely beautiful or sweet or nice, it's also asking to you extremely ugly, sad, or bad. So in that sense, you're basically doing a roller coaster in the story. However, I wonder how how it is for listeners actually. Is it fun? Is it more interesting? Is it more reliable? What do you think?
I think it was very, very nice. I really like how it was performed by Jamal. And the polarity he was using, it was a fair answer, but it was really interesting to think and to try to understand and to try to extract polarity. Right?
Thank you so much, Alvaro.
He knew
So
how
children likes
to exaggerate in that way.
Alvaro, I cannot hear the last part you say it. Can you maybe write to the chat? I could not hear you on the last part.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you better now, yes.
That I liked how he exaggerated also physically and verbally, and that gave more sense to understand in his story.
You can play this game actually, Alvaro, with your children, and you can really ask them also to be director or the vice versa, to be the drama queen. Because children, as we had at the very first session about creating a character together, they really see all these characters with all emotions, like with all up and down moments, and they love all these polarities. In that sense, I know that as adults, it's quite difficult to give all these polarities in a high energy or in a very low energy, because you really need to go inside of this character or this world. However, if you can really go more deeper in the polarities, just like opposites attract each other, you can actually give a really sense of being a whole, being one in the story. In that sense, it's very important to tell a story, because in each story there is a situation of unbalanced situation. By giving all these polarities, all these opposite directions, you can basically actually create a real story world to your child. And believe me, I love it. And they love it also. For the next slide, I have another story for you from Aesop's. In the Aesop's fable, they are quite short, and there are a lot of different small, tiny details connected to oppositions. For example, the lion and the mouse. A lion looked at the mouse and said, "What is this, such an insignificant, timid creature as yourself?" Not long after, the lion was caught in a net by a hunter and was unable to escape. Suddenly, he heard the sound of gnawing. Turning his mighty head, he saw the mouse slowly but surely biting through his bones. So the lion never forget this important thing, this great deed the mouse did for him. It's a very, very, very small story. And before focusing on or analyzing the polarities, again, it's your time to play this game. How can you develop your polarities? Again, I want to challenge you by being a director and a drama queen by using the lion and the mouse story. And this time, the small one is going to be the listener, and then the other one is going to be the storyteller. Do not forget to switch the roles. Enjoy the story. Hello everyone, I'm seeing some smiley face. Is there anyone in this room who wants to share his or her experience actually? Tell me more drama. Is it easier or again very difficult? What do you think?
This time was easier.
Really? Really? Why, Ogül? Why it's easier?
Maybe because I saw an example and I understood it better, or
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know.
The thing is, right now when we do have the story, we know how the lion is, and we know how the mouse is. So we already have some ideas. And you can actually work with those Aesop fable about the very first course that we made so far, focusing on earth, water, or other forms of characters. But since we know actually what does it mean, it's very easy to be more dramatic, or it's easy to give more directing, like give me this more, I feel you, okay, go in this direction. How was it for the listeners actually?
So it was nice to see the polarity from the teller. The teller is able to make it very big or small. So this time Ogil made it so nicely that I can see, I can feel the noise of the lion and the mouse at the same time. It was great, and I just enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Cemal, for this feedback, because that's what I want to hear, you know. Why we are focusing on polarities actually is having this sense of fulfillment. Because if we are able to give those polarities really with all qualities, how extreme they are, how strange they are, how good they are, how bad they are, then we really have the ability to give our audience the sense of wholeness, the sense of fulfillment. In that sense, remember, all the fairy tales, all the folk tales, all the myths are always starting something unexpected happened, which means the chaos is coming out. To deal with this chaos, we need to finish the story with a new order. But if we really want to give a new order, then we really have to give actually to our children all sorts of polarities. If no one has anything to say, I want to go the next one. You can always share your opinions in the chat. One of the beautiful quote that I want to share with you is from William Blake is coming. Without the contraries is no progression. Attraction and repulsion, reason and energy, love and hate are necessary to human existence. This is extremely important because children sometimes doesn't have the chance to express themselves, or we as adults do not know how to communicate our problems. By telling stories, by entering the world of the stories, we can really give some deep topic, some deep polarities that we prefer not to tell it directly. And if we can really give those kind of polarities to our children as our audience, then the tension that they have in their inner world can be more satisfied. They can also feel more enjoyment, but also more fulfilled at the end of the storytelling sessions. In that sense, I have to say to you, focusing on polarities and telling those polarities is a big work. It's not easy at all, because mostly it can be connected to our shadow feelings, or it can be connected to something we prefer not to tell it, since society prefers not to show it. I really encourage you to focus on especially those kind of things, because probably it's going to also influence you. And please remember, the process of growing up is not easy as well. There is always the tension inside of the children. Therefore, it's extremely important to focusing on the opposites in each stories. While you are telling stories, it's extremely important, again, I'm telling you, to find out what are the polarities. And if you are only going to be a sweet storyteller as an adult, as a mother or father, if you only put the good details, positive details, if you don't give the negative details, then it doesn't really make sense. By saying that, I want to say that it's also connected to you how you tell the story. For example, from the Cinderella story, we all know that the mother of Cinderella is dying in the story. So there is a big sorrow, but about this sorrow moment, maybe we are not going to tell all small tiny details about the funerals, about the other small tiny details, but we still give this sense of sorrow in the story. And it's really our duty to give those kind of moments as well, because then there is no sense of whole. You just cannot give what the story wants to give, basically. In that sense, I really want to take your attention, especially the theme. While you focus on the stories, you really need to be aware of what kind of theme you are telling to your child. So this is the end of this storytelling sessions. And I want to also give those important, useful sources for you. For today's session, I also added one of the important sources for us as a storytellers, Bruno Bettelheim, The Use of Enchantment, The Meaning and Importance of Fairy Tales. There you are also going to see some polarities, why it is so important to focus on. And now it's your time to ask me questions if you have any. Go ahead. Cemal, I'm seeing your eye.
So I just would like to know if the children are capable to understand those polarities depending on the age. For instance, these physical polarities, they can understand maybe earlier, but for the conceptual polarities, what you think, what age they are going to just conceptualize those things like fairness, unfairness, or those kinds of conceptual things, are they capable to understand?
Yes, thank you so much
Or
for this
what is the
question,
age?
Jamal. So until after the age of 3, most of the time children can say that I have a fear from this, or I'm afraid, I heard something, or sometimes they, for example, created some imaginary friends. I really highly recommend to tell fairy tales, basically, after 5 years old. But you can tell a story focusing on the fables, like the one that I showed you in this slide, for also 3 years old children as well. By saying that, rather than what I'm telling, how I'm telling is more important, especially for the age of 4 and 5, before the 6 years old. You really should be careful about giving those small, tiny details, especially when it is too dark. However, I also want to say to you that I'm not a psychologist. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I'm going to just share the link that I'm reading about the telling stories to which age group. If there is a healthy emotions by being fearful in the story, it can be beneficial actually in terms of telling the story, because this emotion is coming, but then it's gone with another sequences. It's really up to the storyteller how those person is telling the story to their children. In that sense, again, if you do not exaggerate those cruel moments, or if you do not make it really, if you do not explain it very hardly manner, then they can understand. For fairy tales, I would say after 6 years old, they can really understand the fairy tales. For 3 and 4 years old, I suggest to tell more like Aesop tales, folk tales, and for 10 or 11 years old, they don't like fairy tales anymore. You should focus on more myth, and in the world of myth, there are really different atypical characters. We focus on most of the time with the fairy tales or folk tales or Aesop's fables right now, but if you have a child more than 10 years old, I especially suggest you to focus on more mythologies actually, because this world is quite deeply and interesting to talk about the philosophical pattern. I guess, yes, this is what I'm thinking. Is there anyone in this room who has another question? If not, I want to thank you, all of you. It was such a pleasure to be with you again. I hope you enjoy the polarities. Don't forget that life is not black and white, but stories can be black and white. So hope to see you soon. Next week we will focus on rhythm and rituals. Hope to see you also. There's no homework for this week.
And one more thing to say to you also, because today I'm very happy we didn't have technical problems, we didn't lose each other, so that's really nice. I think this is also related to our small group tonight. So on the other hand, if you have friends who would like to join us, you can happily invite them also and tell them about the videos so they can watch them online. And please also, if you're interested in our project, in our other activities, just check us out on Facebook, on the blog, and see you next week. Bye bye.